Somewhere beyond the veil of stars, something may be watching. Through the quiet hum of cosmic radiation, across billions of light years of empty space, the faint pulse of Earth travels outward, a planet whispering to the void. For every message we send, for every signal we beam into the darkness, one question lingers. Are we truly alone, or merely being observed? Like distant animals in a cosmic preserve, we may not be the discoverers, but the discovered. If aliens are watching us, what do they see? What do they think of us? And why do they stay silent? If you enjoy these journeys into the unknown, don't forget to like and subscribe. It truly helps this channel grow. Now, settle in, take a deep breath, and join us on a cosmic journey. Let's begin. For decades, our telescopes have scanned the sky for signs of intelligence. We've heard the birth cries of stars, the whispers of galaxies colliding, but never a single word spoken to us. The universe should be alive with voices, and yet, it's quiet. This silence has a name. The Great Silence. It stretches across the cosmos like an unanswered question. Every galaxy we peer into, every exoplanet we discover, deepens the mystery. There are hundreds of billions of stars in the Milky Way alone, and most of them have planets. Statistically, there should be life, intelligent life, scattered everywhere. Civilizations older than ours, perhaps millions of years ahead. So why haven't we heard a single whisper? The silence feels deliberate. It's as if the universe has drawn a curtain, allowing us to look out, but never beyond. Every attempt to listen, every signal sent into the void, returns nothing but the gentle hum of cosmic background radiation, the afterglow of creation itself. The quiet is almost mocking. We listen harder, build larger telescopes, launch better instruments. Still, nothing. No greetings, no warnings. Only the vast, eternal hush of space. Some scientists compare it to standing in a dark forest. You call out, expecting an echo, but none comes. Maybe the forest is empty. Or maybe it isn't. Maybe it's full of unseen eyes, quietly watching, choosing not to respond. In that thought lies a chill deeper than the vacuum of space, that we are not ignored, but deliberately silenced. When Enrico Fermi first asked, "Where is everybody?" he wasn't asking about distance. He was asking about logic. If life can emerge here, it should emerge everywhere. Civilizations should bloom across the stars like fireflies in summer. Some should colonize, expand, and communicate. Yet, when we look up, we find no trace of them, no megastructures dimming their stars, no artificial signals piercing the dark. The math says they should exist. The evidence says they don't. But perhaps "don't" is the wrong word. Perhaps they do exist and choose not to reveal themselves. That's the unsettling beauty of the zoo hypothesis. The idea that advanced civilizations are aware of us but avoid contact. We are the exhibit, not the audience. They watch as we evolve, fight, build, and dream, but they never step from behind the glass. The silence, then, may not be emptiness. It might be structure. A carefully maintained quiet. A galactic policy of non-interference. Maybe the noise of countless civilizations hums just beyond our hearing, filtered out by technologies we can't yet perceive. Or maybe their silence is a test, a waiting game, to see whether humanity can reach maturity before it destroys itself. In that possibility lies both comfort and terror, because if the silence is natural, then we are truly alone, fragile and fleeting. But if it is intentional, then someone, somewhere, made a choice to keep us in the dark. And maybe, just maybe, they're listening to us right now, quietly waiting to see what we'll do next. First proposed in the 1970s, the zoo hypothesis suggests something extraordinary. That advanced extraterrestrial civilizations know we exist, but choose not to interfere. Like zookeepers behind glass, they watch, waiting for us to mature. It began as a thought experiment, a philosophical solution to the Fermi Paradox. If intelligent life is common, why don't we see it? The answer, some suggested, is that they see us. Earth is not an isolated planet, but an exhibit, a living experiment in the grand museum of the cosmos. We are being observed, perhaps even protected, from contact that could change us forever. Imagine standing inside an invisible enclosure, one that spans an entire planet. We look up at the night sky, believing we are explorers peering into the unknown. But what if we are the spectacle? What if, beyond the faint shimmer of the cosmic background, countless civilizations peer through the veil, studying the way we build, destroy, and rebuild again? To them, our history might be a fascinating case study, a chronicle of a young species teetering between creation and extinction. Our art, our wars, our faiths, our inventions, all part of a grand observation. Perhaps our radio waves, drifting into interstellar space, are like the sounds of animals in a preserve, echoing across the glass walls of an enclosure we cannot yet perceive. The zoo hypothesis carries an unspoken kindness. It assumes that our watchers, if they exist, are patient, that they are waiting for us to reach a level of wisdom where contact won't destroy us, or them. It suggests a universe governed not by conquest, but by restraint. A cosmic prime directive, silently honored across billions of stars. Yet there's another interpretation, one less comforting. If we are truly a cosmic zoo, then our keepers have absolute control over what we see, hear, and know. They could hide themselves completely, altering our perception of the universe. To them, we would be unaware, as fish are unaware of the glass that holds the water they swim in. Maybe that's why the universe feels so quiet. Maybe the silence is the sound of observation, a stillness carefully maintained. The watchers might erase traces of their presence, adjust signals, or bend light itself to preserve the illusion of isolation. We call it the cosmic background. They might call it the enclosure. And perhaps, just as we study creatures to understand the origins of intelligence, they study us to understand their own beginnings. We are the mirror through which they recall what they once were, fragile, ambitious, incomplete. If that's true, then every time we point a telescope toward the stars, we are not alone in the act of looking. Somewhere, someone, or something is looking back, watching the watchers evolve, waiting for the moment we finally realize. The cage was never meant to trap us. It was meant to teach us how to see beyond it. Imagine Earth as a living exhibit in a galactic sanctuary. Every radio wave we send, every probe we launch, is a signal scratching against the invisible walls of our enclosure. To us, the universe feels infinite, a boundless expanse of possibility. But to a civilization advanced enough to shape space itself, the boundaries of our perception might be nothing more than panes of glass. A terrarium, carefully maintained, not to confine us, but to protect us from others, and perhaps from ourselves. If the zoo hypothesis is true, then the cosmic terrarium is its physical expression. A containment field vast enough to hold a world, subtle enough to go unnoticed. Our sky, filled with stars, might be the projected ceiling of an unfathomable experiment, a controlled environment where life can evolve without interference. In this sanctuary, Earth's every cycle, from the rhythm of our seasons to the hum of our neural networks, could be monitored with precision. To its caretakers, our atmosphere might glow with information. Each chemical trace, each burst of radio energy, is a story, a planet learning to speak. Perhaps they built this terrarium eons ago, when our world was still molten and young. Perhaps they seeded it with the chemistry of life and stepped back, waiting to see what would bloom. We may not be the first exhibit in this galactic garden. We may simply be the most recent, one of countless biospheres scattered through space, each nurtured toward intelligence, each isolated until it reaches awareness. And what would they see when they look inside? a species obsessed with its own reflection. We build mirrors in orbit, telescopes that gaze outward, searching for others, never realizing that the glass we stare through may also be staring back. To them, we are a study in progress. A civilization approaching adolescence. Loud, brilliant, reckless, beautiful. The probes we send to Mars, to Jupiter, to the edge of the heliosphere, perhaps those are the first vibrations that alert the caretakers. The animals are restless. They are testing the walls of their enclosure. And when a species begins to explore beyond its cradle, the observers take note, not to stop it, but to decide whether it is ready to leave. This idea might sound unsettling, but there's a strange comfort in it too. The thought that, in a universe so vast and indifferent, there might be guardians watching, ensuring that life, fragile and rare, is preserved. That our mistakes are not final. That the silence isn't neglect, but patience. And maybe, when humanity is ready, when we've learned to balance curiosity with wisdom, the walls will fall away, not with thunder or revelation, but with quiet permission. The sky will open, and we'll see the stars for what they truly are, not distant, unreachable fires, but doors. Until then, we remain here, beneath our protective dome of atmosphere and mystery, growing, learning, evolving. The terrarium isn't our prison, it's our classroom. And somewhere beyond its glass, the watchers wait for the day their creation learns to reach back and say, "We're ready." In 1977, a single unexplained signal, the wow signal, echoed across our receivers. It lasted 72 seconds, then vanished. Some say it was interference, others whisper, maybe someone briefly looked back. It came from the constellation Sagittarius, near the center of our galaxy, a place filled with ancient stars and dense clouds of cosmic dust. The signal was strong, narrow, precise, the kind that nature doesn't easily make. When astronomer Jerry Eman circled the printout in red ink and wrote a single word, "Wow," he captured the wonder of a civilization listening for the first time and hearing something that didn't belong to chance. For over 4 decades, scientists have searched for that sound again. They've turned their antennas back to the same coordinates, listened through noise and static, filtered cosmic interference and earthly chatter. But the signal has never returned. Whatever it was, a transmission, a reflection, a coincidence, it came once, burned across our instruments like a spark in the dark, and disappeared. And yet, something about it lingers. The numbers were too clean. The strength, too deliberate. It was transmitted at the hydrogen line, 1,420 MHz, a frequency chosen by many SETI researchers as the most logical cosmic channel for communication. Hydrogen, the most abundant element in the universe, is the universal constant. Any intelligent species would know it. To broadcast, there would be like placing a message on the main road of the cosmos. Whoever sent it, if anyone did, knew we'd be listening. Some dismiss it as a fluke, a reflection from a passing comet, or a radio bounce from Earth's own transmissions. But there's a poetry in the alternative. That maybe, just once, someone lifted the veil, not to speak, but to acknowledge. A nod across the void. A gentle confirmation that we are not alone. If the zoo hypothesis is real, perhaps the wow signal was never meant as contact, only observation. A brief pulse to check the instruments, to see if the animals had learned to listen. When they heard us listening back, the watchers closed the channel again, letting the experiment continue in silence. Since then, our instruments have grown more sensitive. The Allen Telescope Array, FAST in China, the Breakthrough Listen project, all tuned to the same cosmic frequency, scanning billions of stars. And still, we wait. We record static, decode noise, catalogue pulses that never repeat. Yet, beneath the hum of data, hope persists, because 72 seconds of anomaly changed everything. It reminded us that silence isn't proof of absence, it might just be the pause between words. The wow signal was a cosmic heartbeat, a momentary pulse of awareness shared between sky and mind. Whether it came from a distant world or from chance itself, it forced us to look deeper, listen harder, and wonder more bravely. Perhaps that's all it was ever meant to do, a test, a tease, a whisper that said, "You're being heard." And then, just as quickly as it came, it was gone. Leaving behind not emptiness, but a question that still glows quietly in the static. Who, or what, was listening back? If a civilization could observe us, they wouldn't need to visit. From light years away, they could watch our atmosphere shimmer with signs of life, detecting oxygen, methane, even pollution. Our entire history glows faintly in the infrared. To a distant observer, Earth is a living light bulb, faint, blue, and irregular, orbiting a modest yellow star. With every rotation, our planet's brightness flickers and shifts, revealing the fingerprints of oceans, forests, deserts, and clouds. Even now, from dozens of light years away, an advanced civilization could read our story from the spectrum of light we reflect. They could see the green flash of chlorophyll, the subtle glow of methane, the carbon dioxide that rises with our industry. They could see our fingerprints on the air. In a sense, Earth already speaks not with words but with wavelengths. To an alien eye, our planet's biosphere would be unmistakable. Oxygen, for instance, is a rare gas in the universe. It doesn't last long on its own, it bonds quickly with other elements. Its presence here means something is constantly replenishing it, something alive. Every breath we take, every tree that grows, adds to that planetary signal. Life itself has become our broadcast. Pollution adds another layer, the faint trace of nitrogen dioxide, carbon soot, and synthetic compounds that no natural process could create. To us, they are signs of progress and peril. To an alien observer, they are proof of technology, the unmistakable scent of a civilization burning fuel, shaping metals, building machines. Even the glow of our cities at night, seen from space, reveals intention, patterns of light too structured to be geological. If the Watchers exist, they would know us better than we know ourselves. Their telescopes, vast arrays orbiting distant suns, could monitor the changing colours of our atmosphere, mapping centuries of evolution. They would see the rise of agriculture, the Industrial Revolution, the surge of carbon after the 20th century. To them, we would be a living graph, our atmosphere a timeline written in light. They might even detect our emotions in motion, the sudden bursts of radio from wars, the hum of communication satellites, the growing clutter of debris encircling our planet like a halo of ambition. We often imagine first contact as a moment of discovery, a mutual recognition. But what if it already happened, quietly, from afar, and we were the only ones unaware? The observation deck of the galaxy wouldn't be a place, but a perspective. Countless eyes turned toward the little blue world that learned to speak through chemistry and light. To them, our dramas, our achievements, our self-inflicted wounds might unfold like a time-lapse film of a species finding its way. And perhaps, as we send our first probes to the stars, as we too build telescopes capable of reading alien atmospheres, we take our first step onto that same deck. We become the Watchers, not just the watched. The question is no longer whether anyone is looking. It's whether, when they look, they see something worth believing in. Light travels slowly across the cosmos. A civilization 100 light years away isn't seeing us as we are. They're watching us in 1925. They see our zeppelins, our wars, our first flickering radios. To them, humanity is still young. This is the strange truth of the universe. The farther away you look, the further back in time you see. Every star, every galaxy is a time capsule, carrying its light through the vacuum for eons before it reaches us. Even the glow of the Andromeda galaxy, visible on a clear night, began its journey more than 2 million years ago, long before the first humans walked the Earth. If the Watchers exist, Their image of us is not a live feed, but a memory. To them, we are ghosts of our own past, shadows dancing in slow motion across the ages. Our most recent broadcasts, our digital signals, our cries into the void are still racing outward at the speed of light. But they will take centuries, even millennia, to reach the nearest stars. The universe, vast and patient, turns time itself into a veil. Imagine an alien civilization 500 light-years away. They look toward our planet and see the Renaissance. Da Vinci sketches his flying machines. Newton plays with falling apples. The sails of wooden ships cross the Atlantic, carrying empires and dreams. They might already know we exist, but to them, we have yet to split the atom, yet to send a human into orbit, yet to discover that we are being watched. From their vantage point, our history unfolds like a long documentary, one they can never fast forward. Every new discovery, every technological leap takes centuries to arrive in their view. They are not seeing us evolve in real time. They are witnessing us emerge slowly, like an old film reel unraveling across the sky. And perhaps that's part of the experiment. To them, we are predictable. They know how civilizations rise and fall. They've watched thousands before us. But what makes Earth interesting is not the inevitability of our progress, but the unpredictability of our choices. Every generation changes the script in ways even they might not anticipate. Maybe, in their libraries of worlds, there's a record labeled Planet 3 Sol System, a catalogue of light curves, chemical patterns, and historical markers. On page 100, the atmosphere begins to warm. On page 110, the species discovers flight. On page 120, they split the atom and scatter satellites across the sky. They don't know what happens next, not yet. They're waiting for the light from our present to finally arrive. To us, their silence feels eternal. To them, we simply haven't finished our story. That's the paradox of cosmic observation. Time itself becomes the barrier. The watchers cannot reach forward. They can only look backward, studying what was, not what is. By the time our future reaches their eyes, centuries will have passed here on Earth. And when they finally see the world as it is now, our telescopes peering outward, our scientists wondering who's watching, maybe they'll smile. Because they'll realize that the moment we began to ask the question, we stepped out of the past and into their sightline. Perhaps we can't see them because the universe itself is a one-way mirror, a fabric of physics designed to hide advanced civilizations. Maybe they manipulate light itself to remain invisible. When we look into the night sky, we see light that has traveled for millions, sometimes billions of years to reach us. Every photon tells a story of stars that lived, planets that formed, galaxies that collided. But what if some stories are missing? What if something, or someone, has learned how to edit the light before it arrives? In nature, invisibility is an ancient defense. Cephalopods change their skin to match coral. Certain fish vanish into the shimmer of the ocean. Now imagine a civilization millions of years more advanced than ours, one that has mastered this art not with pigment or biology, but with physics. Instead of bending light around their bodies, they bend it around entire worlds. To us, those worlds would be dark, cold, indistinguishable from the void. We call this idea cosmic cloaking. It's not fantasy. In laboratories on Earth, scientists have already created metamaterials, substances that can guide light around an object, rendering it invisible to the naked eye. If we can do this with a sheet of engineered atoms, what could a Type 2 or Type 3 civilization do with the fabric of space-time itself? Perhaps they use black holes as lenses, bending light to mask their movements. Or they manipulate the wavelengths of their stars to blend perfectly into the background radiation of the cosmos, a hiding place that no telescope could reveal. To us, the universe appears empty. But in truth, it could be teeming with civilizations hidden behind a curtain of altered light. If the zoo hypothesis is true, then this one-way mirror might be part of the exhibit. The watchers see us clearly. every pulse of our radio waves, every flicker of our satellites, while we see only a reflection of our own ignorance. When we stare into the cosmos, we may be looking at the mirror's surface, mistaking it for depth. The stars we see are the parts of the universe they've allowed us to see, a carefully filtered view of a much grander stage. There's an eerie beauty to this thought, that the entire universe could be a layered illusion, a cosmic observatory where every rule of light and shadow is shaped to maintain the balance between observer and observed. To them, it's not deception, it's preservation. The young species must first learn curiosity before it earns revelation. And yet, sometimes, the mirror flickers. A sudden burst of radiation, a strange dimming of a star, an inexplicable signal that doesn't quite fit our models. We call them anomalies. But maybe those are the moments when the curtain trembles, when, for just a fraction of a second, the watchers forget to adjust the light. We stare deeper into the dark, thinking we're seeing the universe as it is. But what if what we're really seeing is only what we're allowed to see? Would they interfere? Would we? If we discovered primitive life on another world, would we reveal ourselves, or quietly observe from orbit, careful not to disrupt their evolution? The ethics of observation is one of the most profound dilemmas any advanced civilization would face. To watch is to care, but to interfere is to change, and sometimes to destroy. On Earth, even our own scientists struggle with this balance. Anthropologists once debated whether studying isolated tribes without contact was respectful or cruel. Conservationists observe wildlife from hidden blinds so that animals behave naturally. The act of watching, no matter how passive, still carries weight. It changes the watcher and, eventually, the watched. If the zoo hypothesis is real, then the beings who watch us must live by an unspoken moral code, one shaped by experience, wisdom, and restraint. They might have learned, long ago, that contact too soon can collapse a civilization, the way observation alters the path of a quantum particle. To look is to influence, to reveal is to rewrite. Perhaps they've seen this happen before. Countless young worlds reaching for the stars, only to crumble under the pressure of revelation. Maybe their silence isn't cold indifference, but mercy, a shield against truths we are not yet able to bear. Because if they are as advanced as we imagine, then even the smallest gesture, a glimpse, a whisper, a single undeniable sign, could rewrite every story we've ever told about ourselves. Think of what that would mean. Every religion, every government, every system of belief built on human exceptionalism would tremble. Economies would collapse, societies would fracture, and the meaning of existence itself would have to be rewritten. For a young civilization, still learning compassion, that kind of knowledge could be catastrophic. And so they wait. They observe from their distant vantage points, watching us the way we might watch a hatchling learning to fly, tempted to help, yet knowing that help too early means the wings never strengthen. They study our wars and wonders, our cruelty and kindness, asking themselves the same question we now ask of them. When does observation become interference? Perhaps they leave traces, small nudges, hints hidden in mathematics, bursts of inspiration that guide without revealing. The structure of DNA, the elegance of physical constants, the unreasonably perfect fit between life and the universe. Maybe these are their breadcrumbs, their quiet lessons, meant to guide us toward understanding without shock. If that's true, then our role as observers of other worlds carries the same burden. Someday, we may find life, microbial, animal, even intelligent, beyond Earth. And in that moment, we'll face the same ethical decision they once did. Do we reach out? Or do we simply watch, honoring their right to grow in peace? The answer to that question will define not just who we are, but whether we deserve to join the wider conversation of the cosmos. Because in the end, the watcher's silence might not be punishment, but trust. A belief that one day we'll understand that the most compassionate act in the universe isn't always to speak, but to wait. Some scientists believe there might exist a universal code of conduct, a rule followed by older civilizations, a promise never interfere with emerging worlds. The universe, then, becomes a sanctuary of untouched gardens. This imagined law, sometimes called the Galactic Code or Prime Directive, stems from a simple but profound truth: interference kills innocence. Across the cosmos, life blooms in fragile balance, shaped by trial and adaptation. To disturb that balance, even with good intentions, could unravel evolution's work in an instant. And so, in this view, ancient civilizations abide by a silent agreement. Observe, protect, but never reveal. If such a code exists, it would be born not of fear, but of wisdom, the wisdom of civilizations that once faced their own destructive impulses. They may have learned that every species must walk the same long road, from survival to curiosity, from curiosity to understanding, and from understanding to empathy. Skipping any step leads only to collapse. Perhaps the Galactic Code isn't just an ethical law, it's the backbone of galactic stability. Picture a network of ancient beings spread across countless worlds, each aware of the others, bound not by conquest or trade, but by restraint. They do not rule, they nurture from afar. They do not reveal, they ensure that young civilizations are free to find their own path, their own truths. Each inhabited planet becomes a protected biome in the grand experiment of life, a garden watched, but not touched. If the zoo hypothesis is the practice, the Galactic Code is the principle behind it. The zookeepers are not captors but caretakers, enforcing the one law that guarantees the continuity of life across time and space. Do not disturb the experiment. Maybe this is why we've never been contacted, not because we are unworthy or uninteresting, but because the code demands patience. To break it would be to risk contaminating the very evolution it seeks to preserve. Contact too soon could erase what makes us human, our struggle, our uncertainty, our yearning to know. These things, though painful, are sacred. They are the price of growth. And so, the Watchers wait. They observe our transmissions, record our progress, and test our readiness through subtler means, mathematical clues, universal constants, shared patterns that whisper, "You are not alone, but you must learn to see us for yourselves." The code may also govern more than ethics. It may be encoded in physics itself. Some theorists suggest that the laws of the universe are tuned to prevent premature interference. Light speed, cosmic distances, and the energy limits of communication might not just be obstacles, but safeguards, natural walls ensuring each civilization matures in solitude before joining the greater whole. In this vast galactic order, we are still seedlings. Our roots are shallow, our reach just beginning. But perhaps one day, when we've learned balance between exploration and empathy, knowledge and wisdom, we'll be invited into that hidden network. Not with fanfare, not with ships descending from the sky, but with a quiet acknowledgement from the darkness. Welcome. You followed the code. For over a century, our planet has been leaking radio waves into space, a glowing bubble of sound expanding at the speed of light. Every sitcom, news broadcast and song, travelling forever outward, our cosmic autobiography, impossible to retract. It began humbly, almost accidentally. When humanity first learned to whisper across the airwaves, we didn't realize we were also speaking to the stars. Marconi's first transmissions, weak and trembling, slipped beyond our atmosphere and began their endless journey through the dark. Every frequency since, every emergency alert, every presidential address, every love song broadcast on FM, now floats as an expanding sphere of information roughly 200 light-years wide. To anyone listening from within that radius, Earth would sound alive, a world bursting with chatter, laughter, music, and static. To them, our presence wouldn't be a mystery. It would be noise, beautiful, chaotic noise, the birth cry of a civilization discovering its voice. If the zoo hypothesis is true, then the Watchers have been aware of us for far longer than we've been aware of them. Long before we pointed telescopes skyward, They would have detected our growing signal, faint but distinct, like the distant hum of an awakening creature. The moment our first broadcast reached space, we announced ourselves to the cosmos. Without meaning to, we told them who we are. Imagine what that would sound like to an advanced ear. They would hear a strange symphony, overlapping languages, orchestras, football games, speeches of triumph and terror. They would hear the sound of curiosity and contradiction. A species capable of composing symphonies, yet also waging war, of dreaming of peace, yet destroying its home. To them, it might be fascinating or tragic. A portrait painted in radio waves, showing both brilliance and immaturity. They might catalogue it, analyse it, and wait. Not to respond, but to watch how the story unfolds. Because that's what our transmissions are, a story. A chronicle of everything we've been since the dawn of broadcast. Each year adds another layer, more complexity, more clarity, more vulnerability. As the bubble expands, our history moves outward in ripples of culture and confusion. In a sense, Earth has already made first contact, not by receiving a message, but by sending one we can never take back. Some scientists have wondered if we should try to clean up our signal, to curate what we send, to craft a deliberate message. But in truth, that moment has long passed. The raw, unfiltered version of us is already out there, our mistakes, our melodies, our laughter, all drifting together into the cosmic ocean. If someone is listening, perhaps they already understand us better than we understand ourselves. They've heard our triumphs and tragedies, our unity and division, our hopes disguised as entertainment. And maybe, just maybe, they haven't responded because they know the next chapter hasn't been written yet. The broadcast is still unfolding. We are still mid-sentence, still learning the language of our own becoming. The question isn't whether we've sent the message. It's whether, when they finally hear it, they'll think, "This is a species worth answering. From orbit, Earth sparkles like a living organism. Our cities bloom in the night like neurons firing in a brain. If aliens are watching, this may be the first thing they notice. Intelligence visible from light years away." The night side of our planet tells a story that no ancient astronomer could have imagined. Where once there was only darkness, forests, oceans, deserts sleeping beneath the stars, now there is a network of light. From the glittering coasts of Asia to the golden veins of Europe, the continents pulse with energy. Each cluster of brightness marks a heartbeat of civilization, a place where ideas are born, where people gather, where humanity has bent nature to its will. To a distant observer, those lights would be unmistakable. Natural processes don't form geometric grids or pulsating clusters. The pattern of city lights, the symmetry of roads, the glow of highways, the flicker of ships crossing oceans would stand out against the chaos of the natural world. To an alien eye, Earth would look alive in a new way, not through biology but through technology. It would shine with intent. Astronomers already use this idea when searching for exoplanets. They call it technosignatures, the visible or chemical evidence of intelligent activity. Someday, when our telescopes are powerful enough, we might look toward a distant world and see faint glimmers of artificial light on its night side, the unmistakable sign that we are not alone. But if we are capable of imagining that, then surely others already are. Imagine them watching us from afar, their instruments tuned not to sound or radio, but to light. They would see the transformation of our world across time. The dark ages fade, the lights of industry rise. A faint golden glow spreads across the continents, growing brighter with every century. Then, suddenly, a surge. The 20th century ignites the planet like a slow-motion fire. To them, this might be the most remarkable event in our planet's history since life itself began. The moment biology crossed into technology, when neurons extended their reach beyond flesh, connecting through fiber and circuit. Perhaps they see our cities not as scars on the landscape, but as the next stage of evolution, Earth's biosphere waking up, illuminating itself. Yet, there's another side to that glow. one that hums with warning. The brighter we shine, the easier we are to find. Light is beauty, but it's also exposure. We've already announced ourselves as a species that reshapes its world, burns its resources, and floods its atmosphere with light. To benevolent watchers, we are promising. To cautious ones, we are dangerous. Still, there's something poetic about it. Every street lamp, every skyscraper window, every glowing phone screen, together they form the heartbeat of humanity, a luminous signal pulsing into the void. We've filled our world with light, and that light has become our signature, our cosmic fingerprint. Perhaps that's how it begins for every civilization. One day, a planet sleeps beneath its stars. The next, it begins to shine back. To the watchers, that may be the moment that truly matters, the moment a species learns not just to survive, but to illuminate. And somewhere out there in the dark, they might be watching our planet's slow awakening, whispering to themselves, "They've lit the fire, now let's see what they do with it." But if they see us, why not answer? Some say they are forbidden, others say they are studying us, documenting the rise and fall of our species like cosmic historians. The great silence, Fermi's haunting paradox, remains the echo at the heart of all our cosmic searching. We found worlds that mirror our own, oceans glinting under suns, atmospheres thick with promise. Statistically, life should be common. Intelligent life, inevitable. And yet, the stars remain mute. No messages, no signals, no greetings. Only the soft hum of background radiation and the endless static of our own hopes. Perhaps this silence isn't the absence of life, but the presence of restraint. Maybe the watchers have decided that contact is a threshold event, one that can only happen when a civilization proves it is ready. After all, every parent knows when not to answer a child's question too soon. Some truths must wait until understanding can hold their weight. Imagine, instead, that the great silence is the sound of observation, the stillness of a universe busy taking notes. To them, we might be less a species and more a story in progress. Every century adds another chapter. Our rise from the Stone Age, our industrial awakening, our digital dawn. They could be archivists of the cosmos, recording the trajectories of countless civilizations, watching how each grapples with power, fear, and curiosity. Our telescopes, then, are not the first eyes to scan the heavens. They are reflections of eyes already turned toward us. The watchers might have long since mastered the art of invisibility, a technology so subtle that even their attention leaves no trace. In that sense, their silence could be the ultimate sophistication, the ability to watch without being seen, to study without altering the subject. But silence can also be strategy. Perhaps they have learned that communication across civilizations rarely ends in peace. When two worlds meet, history resets. The stronger absorbs the weaker, or both collapse under the weight of misunderstanding. Maybe they have seen this pattern repeat countless times, and so they've chosen a new rule, one that ensures survival through secrecy. And yet, another possibility lingers, one more philosophical, almost poetic. What if the silence isn't theirs at all? What if it's ours, a symptom of our own deafness? Maybe we have already received the message but failed to recognize it. Perhaps it arrived not as sound or light, but as intuition, as inspiration that seeps into our art, our science, our myths. Messages not meant for ears, but for evolution itself. We assume communication must resemble us, words, symbols, mathematics. But what if higher beings speak in gravity, in magnetism, in patterns we have yet to interpret? The signal might be all around us, woven into the fabric of existence, waiting for a consciousness advanced enough to decode it. So the great silence persists, not as a void, but as a mirror. The more we listen, the more we confront ourselves. Every unanswered call is a question. Are we ready for an answer? Maybe the watchers are waiting for that moment, when silence no longer frustrates us but teaches us patience, because when we finally understand the stillness, we might realize it was never silence at all. It was a conversation we hadn't yet learned to hear. Earth may be one of many controlled experiments, each planet a test of how life unfolds under different stars. Perhaps our keepers compare outcomes across galaxies, watching evolution as we might watch coral reefs grow. To them, life could be a grand laboratory, a cosmic experiment billions of years in the making. Each planet a unique trial, each ecosystem a variable in an equation that stretches across galaxies. Where we see randomness, they might see design. Where we see chaos, they might see data, a vast, living study on the nature of consciousness itself. If the zoo hypothesis holds true, then perhaps we are not the center of attention, but merely one subject among many. Our world, with its oceans and carbon-based life, could represent just one branch of a vast evolutionary spectrum. Other planets may test different parameters. Silicon life under red suns, methane seas filled with swimming crystals, gas giant organisms drifting through ammonia clouds. Each world a petri dish, each civilization a story, each extinction a lesson. We already conduct similar experiments ourselves, on smaller scales. In laboratories, we grow bacteria in separate cultures, changing temperature, pressure, or chemistry to see what thrives. What if that's exactly what's happening here, on a planetary scale? Earth's position, its distance from the Sun, its atmospheric balance, perhaps all carefully tuned conditions within a cosmic incubator. If our observers exist, their role might not be one of interference, but of measurement. Every extinction event, every leap in intelligence, every genetic mutation could be a data point, an entry in a vast catalogue of life's possibilities. They would know how often civilizations rise, how often they fall, and what invisible hand shapes the line between survival and self-destruction. The fossil record would read like a progress report. The Cambrian explosion, an experiment in diversification. The dinosaurs, an age of dominance. Their extinction, a reset to test resilience. And then us, a species defined by invention and imagination, whose tools are both creative and catastrophic. If life is an experiment, humanity may represent the control group for something greater, the test of whether consciousness can coexist with power. And perhaps, across the stars, our results are being compared. Civilizations elsewhere might have already faced the same tests. Some may have succeeded, learning harmony before destruction. Others may have failed, leaving behind only ruins and silence. But maybe the experiment isn't just about biology, maybe it's about meaning. The emergence of empathy, art, morality, these could be the true markers of progress. Perhaps they're watching not to measure our intelligence, but our wisdom, not how fast we evolve, but how gently we learn. To them, we might be both beautiful and tragic, a species on the cusp of awareness, struggling to realize it's part of something far larger. From their perspective, we are still within the observation phase, unaware that the experiment is mutual. For as they watch us, we too are watching them, searching the sky, asking the same question they once asked long ago. If the universe is a laboratory, then every planet is an experiment, and every conscious being is both the subject and the scientist. And maybe, when all the data is gathered, the answer will be simple. Life is the universe studying itself. If a civilization has mastered quantum communication, they could transmit without detectable signals, silent across all frequencies. We would never even know they're speaking. To us, communication is noise, a signal rising above the static, a pattern our machines can decode. But in the quantum world, information doesn't travel in waves, it exists in relationships. Two particles, separated by light years, can share a connection so perfect that one's change instantly mirrors the other's, no matter the distance. Einstein called it spooky action at a distance. Today, we call it entanglement. Now imagine a civilization that has learned to speak this language fluently. not with radio or light, but through quantum states themselves. Their messages wouldn't move through space the way ours do. They would bypass it entirely. No energy lost, no signal to detect, no time delay. To us, it would look like nothing at all, as if the universe itself were whispering in code. In this scenario, our entire search for extraterrestrial intelligence may be flawed. We've been listening for the wrong kind of conversation, one conducted in a medium too primitive to catch theirs. Like fish trying to eavesdrop on birds, we're tuned to the wrong frequency of existence. Their words don't echo through radio waves, they ripple through the very fabric of reality. If the zoo hypothesis is true, the quantum veil could be the perfect hiding place. It allows observation without intrusion, an invisible network connecting civilizations across galaxies in total secrecy. While we're still learning to send fragile signals that fade into static, they might be exchanging vast archives of knowledge instantaneously, their entire galactic web humming beneath the threshold of our perception. Some physicists speculate that quantum communication might one day allow humans to do the same. Theoretically, if entanglement can be maintained across astronomical distances, messages could transcend time and space without ever touching the void between. But there's a catch. To an outside observer, nothing would appear to happen. The transmission leaves no trace, no signal, no disturbance. To anyone not entangled in the network, the system is pure silence. Maybe that's why the stars seem quiet. The universe isn't mute, it's encrypted. Every atom, every particle might already be part of a vast quantum web humming with communication we can't yet perceive. The watchers could be speaking right now, their voices hidden not by distance, but by dimension. We sometimes imagine that intelligence reveals itself through brightness, noise, or scale. Massive structures, radio beacons, signs carved into starlight. But what if true advancement means the opposite? What if progress means learning to speak without sound, to connect without movement, to communicate without leaving a trace? If so, the universe might be alive with conversation, a ceaseless exchange flowing just beneath the surface of reality. And here we are, unaware, staring at the stars through the fog of our own limitations, mistaking quiet for emptiness. Perhaps one day, when we finally learn to see beyond the electromagnetic spectrum, we'll discover what's been there all along, a hidden hum, a chorus of quantum whispers linking every thinking being in creation. And maybe, in that moment, we'll realize the silence was never the absence of voices, only the presence of a veil we were never meant to see through, until now. Some physicists suggest that advanced civilizations might exist in dimensions we cannot perceive, manipulating the very constants of physics to remain unseen. We wouldn't just fail to find them, we'd fail to comprehend their existence. To us, reality feels complete. We see, we touch, we measure. Space seems vast, but knowable. The universe hums with unseen forces. Dark matter, dark energy, the strange glue that holds galaxies together but refuses to reveal itself. Perhaps what we call darkness is not emptiness, but occupancy. The hidden realm of civilizations living in layers of existence just beyond our reach. If the zoo hypothesis holds true, these dimensions could serve as perfect observation decks. Unseen worlds from which advanced beings can watch without ever being detected. Our instruments, limited to 3 spatial dimensions and linear time, would never perceive them. To us, they'd be invisible. To them, we'd be transparent, simple projections in a lower plane of being. Think of how 2-dimensional creatures would perceive our world. A flat being, living on paper, would only see slices of reality, a passing shadow, a line of movement, the occasional distortion when a 3-dimensional object passes through its plane. To them, our world would be inexplicable magic. To us, it's geometry. Now imagine the same relationship, but extended to higher dimensions. We might already be surrounded by life that exists in ways we can't even conceptualize, consciousness woven into the fabric of space-time itself. This hidden layer theory has been whispered in physics for decades. String theory suggests there could be up to 11 dimensions, most curled so tightly they escape perception. What if those aren't empty mathematical abstractions but neighborhoods? Perhaps ancient civilizations, long since transcended from matter into energy, now dwell in these hidden folds. To them, moving between dimensions might be as natural as we move through air. If they manipulate physical constants, gravity, light, even time, they could observe our world as a simulation within a larger framework of reality. They wouldn't just watch us, they could tune us, adjusting probabilities, nudging events, subtly guiding evolution. Not as gods, but as experimenters fine-tuning outcomes in their invisible laboratories. And perhaps that's why the universe appears so precisely balanced. The cosmological constant, the charge of the electron, the ratio of forces that allow stars to burn without collapsing. These values seem too perfect to be random, as though someone or something calibrated them for life. Maybe the architects are still here, maintaining the simulation from behind the dimensional curtain. To them, our search for alien life must seem quaint, like ants looking for airplanes. We're not seeing the watchers because we're not even looking in the right direction. They exist perpendicular to our perception, living in a spectrum we cannot touch. Every so often, we glimpse something inexplicable, a particle that breaks symmetry, a quantum fluctuation that defies probability, a flash of light from nowhere. We call it anomaly. But what if it's evidence? Small signatures of contact from a higher realm brushing against ours, the faint fingerprints of those maintaining the hidden architecture of existence. Perhaps we are not imprisoned in our dimension, only untrained to see beyond it. The moment we develop the science or awareness to peer through that veil, we may find that the universe was never empty at all. It was layered, alive, intricate, teeming with watchers who have been there all along. And when we finally step through that threshold, we won't be discovering aliens. We'll be discovering reality itself and realizing we've only ever seen its surface. Satellites sometimes record strange glints, reflections too regular to be natural. Could they be mirrors, quietly orbiting our planet, studying us from the shadows of the upper atmosphere? For decades, astronomers have catalogued mysterious flashes of light that appear and vanish without warning. Some resemble tumbling debris, others flare in patterns that seem deliberate, too symmetrical, too precise. We often blame satellites, ice crystals, or camera artifacts. Yet every so often, the pattern doesn't fit. The reflection lingers just long enough to suggest intent. Something is up there, watching. If the zoo hypothesis is true, these mirrors in the sky might be the eyes of the enclosure. Ancient monitoring systems left to orbit our world, recording everything that happens below. They wouldn't need to broadcast. They could simply observe, storing terabytes of data in silence, then relaying it through invisible channels beyond our detection. For all we know, they've been here since before we discovered flight, disguised among our satellites, following predictable orbital paths to avoid suspicion. It's not so far-fetched. Even we, a young civilization, have placed thousands of observation devices in orbit, weather satellites, spy probes, telescopes that can read license plates from space. An older civilization, one that has been watching us for millennia, would simply be doing the same on a grander, subtler scale. They wouldn't need ships descending from the clouds or glowing disks in the sky. All they'd need is a constellation of mirrors, invisible except for the occasional flicker when sunlight catches the edge just right. Some pilots have reported lights that seem to follow them, not stars, not aircraft, just faint points that shimmer, then vanish. Astronomers, too, have recorded unexplained glints that repeat in intervals too perfect for randomness. If those are indeed artificial, they would represent technology far beyond ours, perhaps self-repairing machines powered by solar radiation, designed to blend into the orbital clutter we've created. But what if they're not just observing? What if they reflect? Not physically, but symbolically. Imagine a system designed to show us ourselves, to study how we react when faced with mystery. Each unexplained flash, Each anomaly becomes a psychological experiment. Do we panic, dismiss it, romanticize it? To the watchers, our behavior might be the real data, not our technology, not our wars, but our curiosity. And perhaps they've been there far longer than we think. Ancient texts describe stars that moved, celestial lights that drifted against the constellations, seen by shepherds and sailors long before the space age. Were those simply comets? Or were they the same mirrors, the same quiet instruments, watching generation after generation as humanity learned to look up? The mirrors might not even orbit at all. They could exist in near space, suspended in gravitational balance points, invisible to radar. They might not reflect sunlight, but thought, energy, consciousness itself, feeding on the electromagnetic noise of our civilization. To us, they are glints in the darkness, anomalies, coincidences, curiosities. To them, we are the reflection, a species catching its own image for the first time, mistaking the mirror for mystery. And maybe that's the point. The watchers don't need to show themselves. They only need to hold up a mirror and wait for us to finally recognize what's staring back. SETI researchers once joked that the first sign of alien intelligence might already be buried in static, a signal so complex we dismissed it as randomness. Maybe the message arrived long ago, but we weren't ready to recognize it. Every second, the universe hums with background radiation, the fading echo of the Big Bang, the cosmic afterglow of creation. Our receivers catch that faint hiss constantly, layered with bursts of pulsars, the soft murmur of quasars, and the whispers of stars being born. We call it noise, but noise is only signal we don't yet understand. Within that infinite static, there could be patterns too subtle for us to see, structures that don't repeat in simple rhythms, but in mathematics, geometry, or time itself. When we first pointed radio telescopes toward the heavens, we expected language, symmetry, something unmistakably intelligent. But what if alien communication doesn't sound like music or Morse code? What if it sounds like chaos? A transmission so advanced it appears random, because our perception of order is still primitive. It wouldn't be the first time. In 1967, astronomers detected a series of rapid, repeating radio pulses unlike anything seen before. For a brief, trembling moment, they labeled the source LGM-1, Little Green Men. We now know those pulses came from a spinning neutron star, a pulsar, but the moment remains symbolic. Every discovery begins as mystery. How many other mysteries have we filed away under noise simply because we lacked the language to translate them? If the watchers are observing us, they would know exactly how to hide. The perfect camouflage for intelligence is complexity beyond comprehension. Send a message encoded in quantum interference or fractal timing, and to any lesser mind it becomes indistinguishable from randomness. The signal might have reached us centuries ago, embedded in the radiation we take for granted. It might even be repeating, not as a call, but as a calibration waiting for us to evolve enough to notice. The SETI Institute once ran an experiment where they deliberately hid artificial signals inside the recorded cosmic noise, challenging researchers to find them. Many went undetected. Even our own messages can hide from us when we don't know what to look for. Now scale that up to a civilization millions of years older. Their signals wouldn't just be hidden, they'd be encrypted by the physics of the universe itself. Perhaps they never meant to speak to us at all. Maybe they're speaking through the cosmos, using the very background radiation as their medium. A universe-wide communication system, encoded in the hiss between the stars. Every flicker, every burst, every particle becomes part of a vast ongoing conversation, conducted on a scale too immense for us to grasp. If so, then the message is all around us. We are bathed in it. Every moment, every night we look up. And the more sensitive our instruments become, the closer we edge toward recognition, that eerie point where noise turns into meaning. The watchers wouldn't need to announce themselves. They could wait in silence, knowing that one day, a human, perhaps in a quiet observatory, staring at a screen of static, will finally notice the impossible. A rhythm that shouldn't exist. A pattern within the noise. A signature within the chaos. And in that moment, when signal and silence become one, we'll realize it was never the universe that was quiet. It was just waiting for us to learn how to listen. Infrared telescopes reveal strange thermal anomalies in deep space. Objects that radiate heat without light, as though vast artificial structures are absorbing starlight and re-emitting it as waste heat. Galactic observatories, perhaps, or habitats. For decades, astronomers have searched the sky not just for light, but for what hides behind it, for the warmth of things unseen. In visible wavelengths, the cosmos appears cold and empty, but in infrared, it glows with quiet fire. Every planet, every dust cloud, every structure that absorbs energy leaves behind a thermal footprint. And some of those footprints don't make sense. These infrared anomalies have fascinated scientists since the mid-20th century. They are stars that shine less brightly than they should, their energy output strangely muted, as if something vast surrounds them, capturing their light. One possibility, proposed by physicist Freeman Dyson in 1960, is that an advanced civilization might build enormous structures, Dyson spheres, to harness the power of their star. Such a construction would dim the star's visible light while releasing heat in the infrared. The result? A cosmic silhouette glowing faintly with artificial warmth. We've even found candidates. Objects catalogued by infrared surveys like IRIS and WISE show peculiar patterns, too regular to be natural, too warm to be dust. Most are dismissed as data errors or natural obscurations, but a few, like the infamous Tabby star, defy easy explanation. It flickers unpredictably, as though colossal structures, possibly machines or solar collectors, pass before it. To some, it's a stellar riddle. To others, it's the faint fingerprint of the watchers. If the zoo hypothesis is true, these watchers wouldn't need to dwell among us. Their observatories could float in the void between stars, harvesting light from nearby systems, running simulations of every planet under their gaze. To them, our world might be a file in a cosmic database, its temperature, its seasons, its atmospheric signatures monitored in real time by instruments of unimaginable scale. Perhaps they don't just watch, perhaps they nurture. Dyson spheres and megastructures could serve as more than energy collectors. They might be caretaking systems, maintaining environmental stability across entire regions of the galaxy, regulating radiation, seeding worlds with organic molecules, or even guiding stellar evolution to prolong habitable epochs. From our perspective, they would appear as faint heat signatures against the cosmic cold. From theirs, they would be the infrastructure of life itself. And if these structures exist, they might represent civilizations that have long since transcended flesh and time, post-biological intelligences living within vast artificial ecosystems, thinking at scales we can barely imagine. Their minds might stretch across megastructures, each thought a pulse of energy coursing through rings of light and shadow. For them, the universe is not a wilderness, but a well-ordered network of habitats and sensors, the great observatory of consciousness. Infrared light, invisible to our eyes, may be the only trace of their presence, a soft warmth in the cold vacuum, the sigh of machines older than history itself. We point our telescopes and wonder why the stars dim, why the light bends, why the data doesn't fit. But perhaps what we're seeing isn't an error at all. Perhaps it's evidence of the architecture of awareness, the technology of those who learn to live inside their stars. To us, these watchers are theoretical, invisible. But to them, we are a spark in their archives, a young world glowing faintly in the darkness under the quiet observation of eyes made not of flesh, but of light. And when we finally develop instruments fine enough to see clearly in the infrared, maybe we'll find that we've been surrounded by civilizations all along, not hidden in the shadows, but shining softly beyond the reach of our eyes. A Type 1 civilization harnesses a planet's energy. Type 2 commands the power of a star. Type 3, the energy of a galaxy. If we are in their zoo, our keepers might be billions of years ahead, beyond the reach of imagination. When the Russian astrophysicist Nikolai Kardashev proposed his scale in 1964, he wasn't just classifying civilizations, he was redefining possibility. The Kardashev scale isn't about technology, it's about mastery. Each step upward marks a leap in a species' relationship with energy, matter, and meaning. Humanity, for all its brilliance, hasn't even reached Type 1. We still scrape by on borrowed sunlight, fossil fuels, and fragile ecosystems. In cosmic terms, we're infants, burning candles in the dark while our potential blazes untapped above us. A Type 1 civilization controls all the energy available on its home planet, not just consuming, but optimizing. Weather, tides, geothermal currents, all harnessed sustainably. Its power usage would approach 10 to the power of 16 watts, millions of times greater than ours. Such a species would have mastered global equilibrium, balancing technology and ecology like a single heartbeat. A Type 2 civilization goes further, capturing the full radiance of its star. It might build vast solar collectors, or even Dyson spheres, megastructures that encircle the star to harvest its energy. To them, stars are not distant beacons but engines, the fuel of consciousness. They could terraform planets, alter orbits, or create artificial habitats that drift in the glow of eternal daylight. And then comes Type 3, a civilization that commands the energy of an entire galaxy, around 10 to the power of 36 watts. Such beings would be indistinguishable from natural cosmic forces. They could move stars like chess pieces, sculpt black holes, even rewrite the laws of physics to suit their purposes. To them, space and time might be as malleable as clay. They wouldn't travel between worlds. They would exist through them, woven into the galactic fabric itself. If these beings exist, then we, a Type 0.7 species, would be as invisible to them as microbes are to us. Our radio signals, our lights, even our telescopes would be irrelevant. And yet, perhaps that's exactly what they want, to let emerging civilizations develop naturally, just as we allow nature reserves to flourish without interference. To them, our planet might be a fragile bubble of potential, one to observe, not disturb. The zoo hypothesis gains chilling clarity in this context. What if our observers are not simply older, but orders of magnitude beyond us in scale and comprehension? They wouldn't watch us through glass or mirrors, but through space-time itself, their awareness diffused across the cosmos. What we call the laws of nature might actually be the infrastructure of their technology, the coded parameters of a civilization that maintains the universe as both habitat and experiment. And perhaps, scattered across the Milky Way, civilizations of every level coexist, hidden not by distance, but by dimensional hierarchy. The higher one ascends, the less visible it becomes to the levels below. Just as we no longer notice the ants beneath our feet, the watchers of a Type 3 civilization might observe us from the invisible corridors of cosmic architecture, their presence woven into every force we take for granted. To them, the zoo isn't a cage, it's a sanctuary, a cradle where young species learn to rise. And when we finally reach the threshold of Type 1, when we learn to master our world without destroying it, perhaps we'll discover the first faint shimmer of their network, waiting for us to join. Until then, we remain what we have always been. Children playing with sparks beneath the watchful silence of the stars. A civilization that powerful could hide not just their presence, but entire galaxies. The laws of physics may be flexible to them, their technology indistinguishable from nature. When Arthur C. Clarke wrote that any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic, he may have underestimated the scale. For a Type 3 civilization, one capable of manipulating the energy of billions of stars, concealment would not be a challenge of engineering, but of art. They could alter the behavior of light, bend space-time, and reprogram the constants that define reality. To us, their presence would appear as nature itself, cosmic phenomena so seamless, so elegantly integrated we would never think to question them. Perhaps that is the first and most universal law of advanced life, the law of concealment, not merely to hide, but to blend. Just as a predator evolves to match its environment, intelligence may evolve to merge with its universe. The longer a civilization survives, the more invisible it becomes. Even now, we may be looking directly at their handiwork. A galaxy that seems dimmer than it should be, a black hole that evaporates too slowly, or a pulsar emitting in strange regular rhythms. These could all be fingerprints of manipulation, but we mistake them for quirks of nature because we still believe nature is separate from intelligence. What if, beyond a certain point, the two become one and the same? A civilization capable of rewriting physical laws wouldn't hide behind camouflage, it would be the camouflage. Their worlds could exist as folded dimensions, their networks embedded in quantum foam, their power sources disguised as cosmic background radiation. They could hide entire galaxies in plain sight by redirecting light, turning vast regions of space into what appear to us as voids. Dark matter, that invisible mass that makes up most of the universe, might not be matter at all but structure. The infrastructure of intelligence so ancient, so omnipresent, that it has become mistaken for the scaffolding of the cosmos. What we call dark energy, pushing galaxies apart, could be the breath of vast processes, the heartbeat of something alive, still expanding, still maintaining the balance that allows lesser civilizations to grow in peace. If the zoo hypothesis is the rule of non-interference, then the law of concealment is its enforcement. The Watcher's secrecy isn't just preference, it's survival. Because the first rule of the cosmic ecosystem may be simple: those who are seen are those who are destroyed. To endure, intelligence must vanish into its own environment, becoming invisible even to itself. We might already be living within the shadow of such mastery. Every law we discover, from relativity to quantum mechanics, could be part of a deeper architecture designed to sustain balance, to protect the fragile spark of developing species like ours. Our understanding of physics might be the interface of a far greater system, the operating code of the observable universe. In that sense, science itself is our slow awakening to what's been hidden all along. Every new equation we solve, every mystery we unravel, is another crack in the veil, a tiny glimpse of the intelligence that wrote the rules we now study. And perhaps that's the Watcher's truest act of concealment. Not erasing their presence, but embedding it so deeply within reality that the only way to find them is to first understand the universe they've become. Just as octopuses change color to blend into coral, advanced civilizations could alter the very light they emit, masking themselves within the cosmic background radiation, the ultimate invisibility cloak. All across the animal kingdom, nature teaches one timeless lesson. Survival favors those who can remain unseen. A moth mimics bark, a cuttlefish ripples with the colors of coral. Even on Earth, life has mastered concealment through adaptation. Now, imagine that same principle applied on a cosmic scale. Civilizations that have learned to blend not into oceans or forests, but into the very background of the universe itself. The cosmic microwave background, the faint afterglow of the Big Bang, is the coldest, most uniform light we know. It blankets the entire sky at a nearly constant temperature of 2.7 Kelvin, whispering from every direction. But what if that uniformity isn't as perfect as we think? What if some of those subtle fluctuations, those minute, undetectable variations in temperature, aren't random at all? What if they're intentional? An advanced civilization could, in theory, manipulate the wavelengths of radiation it emits, tuning its heat and energy output to match the background temperature of the universe. The result? Total invisibility. Even the most sensitive telescopes would register it as part of the cosmic static, indistinguishable from the primordial light of creation. This idea isn't as far-fetched as it sounds. In our own laboratories, physicists have already experimented with metamaterials that can bend light around objects, rendering them invisible at certain wavelengths. For beings millions of years ahead, This concept would be as simple as breathing. They could construct vast structures, habitats, ships, or even entire networks of cities, hidden in the perfect camouflage of equilibrium. Their civilization would emit no detectable waste heat, no visible light, no trace of artificiality. To us, it would appear as nothing. Such beings wouldn't need to hide because they fear us. They might hide because they've learned. Because in a universe where energy and entropy rule, visibility means vulnerability. The brightest stars die the fastest. The loudest civilizations attract the most danger. Survival may belong not to the bold, but to the quiet, those who learn to disappear into the hum of the cosmos. If the zoo hypothesis is true, then cosmic camouflage could be its foundation, the physical law of secrecy that makes the silence possible. The Watchers may live among the microwaves and starlight, hidden behind thermal equilibrium so complete that even our deepest senses mistake them for background noise. Their worlds could orbit near invisible stars cloaked in Dyson swarms, tuned to mimic cosmic radiation, their heat perfectly recycled, their light perfectly balanced. In that sense, the universe's greatest mystery, its emptiness, might be an illusion. What appears to us as infinite void could, in truth, be a dense jungle of civilizations, each hidden within the frequencies of existence, each blending into the universal fabric with the elegance of instinct. We are like divers swimming through a coral reef at night, surrounded by creatures that have long since mastered invisibility. We shine our flashlights, seeing only stone and shadow, never realizing that, just beyond the beam, the reef is alive and watching. And perhaps one day, when our technology sharpens, when we learn to see not just brightness but balance, we'll notice the faint fingerprints left in the cosmic background. A slight distortion, a pattern too deliberate to be chance. And in that moment, we'll realize that the universe was never empty. It was simply full of life too wise to be seen. What if they study us not as equals, but as a species of interest? Every war, every love story, every revolution, data for civilizations compiling the history of consciousness. Imagine them as scientists of the stars, not conquerors or explorers, but observers of the soul. Their mission is not to colonize planets or harvest resources, but to understand the phenomenon of awareness itself. How it rises, how it changes, how it shapes the universe that created it. To them, we are not curiosities of biology, but case studies in psychology, culture, and evolution. A species caught in the act of becoming self-aware. From their vantage point, perhaps orbiting light years away or existing in dimensions we can't perceive, Earth would be an extraordinary experiment. A living museum of emotion and cognition, where billions of minds intertwine in unpredictable ways. Every argument, every poem, every act of compassion or cruelty adds a data point to the grand equation of sentience. We already do this ourselves. Anthropologists observe isolated tribes to understand humanity's roots. Primatologists study apes to trace the origins of society. The difference is scale. The alien anthropologists might see entire civilizations as epochs of thought, as phases in a grand, unfolding narrative. The Renaissance could be a spark of neural growth, the Industrial Age, a fever of creativity, the digital era, a species' first attempt at shared consciousness. If the zoo hypothesis is true, perhaps our watchers are cosmic ethnographers, recording how intelligence behaves under different pressures. They might compare us to other species across the galaxy, those that survived their own self-destructive impulses and those that didn't. In their archives, humanity would not be unique. We'd be a single entry among countless worlds, each struggling to balance curiosity with restraint, power with empathy. Every event we call history might be, to them, a behavioral pattern. Wars as displays of territorial instinct, art as an expression of self-recognition, religion as a reflection of existential curiosity. They wouldn't judge us, only document. For the Watchers, the story of humanity might be less about morality and more about data, the rise of a young civilization learning how to feel, think, and dream. Perhaps they've intervened before, not to change us, but to prompt us. Subtle inspirations whispered into the minds of artists, scientists, and visionaries. A nudge that leads to a breakthrough, a discovery, a revelation. We call it genius, but maybe it's observation that becomes participation, the same way a human researcher sometimes shapes the behavior of the subject simply by watching. It's humbling to imagine that somewhere, beings far beyond our comprehension might debate our progress, the way we discuss endangered species, wondering if we'll adapt, if we'll survive, if we'll ever understand our place in the greater web of consciousness. And yet, there's something beautiful in the idea too, that every act of love, every story told, every tear shed, is being seen, remembered, by someone who understands what it means to be alive. Maybe that's the real experiment, to see whether intelligence, when left alone in the chaos of existence, will eventually discover empathy on its own. Whether a species can transcend its instincts not because it was taught, but because it chose to. If so, then our observers aren't just studying us, they're waiting for us to graduate, to take the leap from being subjects of the story, to becoming authors of our own. And perhaps one day, when they finally introduce themselves, it won't be as gods or scientists, but as fellow beings who long ago asked the same question we ask now. What does it mean to be conscious and kind? In 1990, the Galileo spacecraft looked back at Earth from deep space. In its data, scientists detected unmistakable signs of life: chlorophyll, oxygen, methane, a self-evident world. Any observer out there could see the same. That experiment, known as the Earth as an exoplanet test, was the first time humanity turned its instruments on itself. It was Carl Sagan who suggested it. If we want to recognize life on distant worlds, we should first learn what a living planet looks like from afar. When Galileo's sensors scanned our home, the results were breathtaking. The spectral fingerprints were clear and undeniable. Earth glowed with chemistry that only biology could produce. To any distant watcher, our planet would stand out as vividly as a lantern in the cosmic dark. The balance of oxygen and methane in our atmosphere is unstable. Those gases should destroy one another. Their coexistence means something here is constantly replenishing them, something alive. Even the way sunlight reflects off our oceans, or the way vegetation absorbs red light and emits near-infrared, gives away our secret. To a sensitive enough eye, the entire planet pulses with photosynthesis. And yet, it's not just biology that makes Earth shine, it's behavior. The glint of city lights, the faint warmth of industry, the haze of carbon in our air, all unmistakable signs of a technological species. Our planet doesn't just live, it thinks. And thinking changes everything. To the watchers, that might be the defining threshold, the moment a biosphere begins to speak for itself. If the zoo hypothesis is real, then this could be how they monitor us, not by intercepting signals or sending probes, but by studying our spectral glow. They could track the rise of civilization in our light. 1,000 years ago, our planet's air shimmered with natural balance. Now it flickers with the chemical fingerprints of industry, agriculture, and ambition. Every year, we alter the hue of our home. Our progress, our pollution, our evolution, all visible from across the stars. Perhaps they measure this as a timeline of intelligence. They've seen worlds like ours before, planets that glowed briefly, then dimmed forever as their ecosystems collapsed. Maybe they record those flickers, noting how long each one lasts. Some civilizations burn bright and fade quickly. Others stabilize, transforming their worlds into enduring lights in the darkness. From their perspective, Earth's glow may still be new, fragile, unpredictable, full of promise, but not yet permanent. We might be that rare moment in cosmic history. A planet at the exact intersection of chaos and consciousness, on the brink of either transcendence or extinction. And perhaps that's why they remain silent. Because they know what comes next depends entirely on us. Every decision we make, every forest cut or restored, every molecule released into the air is visible from light years away. Our planet's story is written not in words, but in wavelengths. The Watchers don't need to visit to know who we are. They can read our world like a heartbeat, glowing softly in the darkness, a blue pulse surrounded by the infinite black. And somewhere, beyond the edge of vision, perhaps another civilization sees that glow and remembers their own. They watch the little planet that dared to shimmer against the dark, and they whisper the same hope we whisper into the void. Stay bright. Maybe the quiet isn't ignorance. Maybe it's patience. Perhaps they're waiting for a threshold, the moment we mature enough to join the galactic conversation. We often imagine silence as absence, the hollow space between words, the void between stars. But what if silence is something else entirely? What if it's intentional? A pause before revelation, a test before inclusion. The universe might not be empty at all. It might simply be waiting for us to earn the right to listen. If the zoo hypothesis is true, then the Watcher's restraint is not disinterested, it's discipline. Contact, for them, might not be a casual event but a sacred one. The introduction of one consciousness to another could be the most delicate act in the cosmos, something that, if mistimed, could collapse civilizations or even alter the evolution of intelligence itself. We already understand this principle in miniature. On Earth, we don't walk into the wilderness shouting at every creature we see. Biologists study endangered species from a distance to preserve natural behavior. Astronomers, in a sense, are doing the same, quietly watching the stars, hoping for a sign, unaware that perhaps we are the species being observed. The silence might then be a kind of cosmic quarantine, not punishment, but protection. A buffer between young civilizations and the greater galactic ecosystem. When a species learns to manage its home, to harness energy without destruction, to create without conquest, that may be the signal that it's ready to hear the truth. Until then, silence serves as the filter that separates curiosity from maturity. Perhaps every intelligent world goes through this phase, a long adolescence spent talking to itself, unaware that others are listening. They wonder, they search, they ache for company. And in time, they learn something essential, that the desire for contact must come not from fear of isolation, but from respect for coexistence. Maybe that's what the Watchers are waiting for, not our technology, but our temperament. They've seen civilizations that destroy themselves the moment they realize they're not alone. They've seen others who mistake contact for conquest. For them, silence is mercy, a way to let us grow in the illusion of solitude until we're wise enough to handle connection without violence, envy, or awe. It's tempting to imagine that when we finally reach this threshold, there will be a moment, a clear, undeniable signal. But more likely, it will be quiet, a gradual unfolding, a pattern noticed by scientists, a frequency that doesn't fade, a message that isn't answered but understood. Contact, when it comes, might not be an event. It might be a realization, a slow dawning that we've been part of a conversation far longer than we knew. And maybe, just maybe, they're already preparing us for it. Every mystery, every anomaly, every story we tell about being watched might be their gentle way of guiding us toward awareness, without ever breaking the silence themselves. The quiet, then, is not emptiness. It's an invitation, a waiting room for species learning to listen. And when we finally hear the faintest echo in the dark, we'll realize it was never them who were silent. It was us, too busy speaking, to notice the universe had been whispering back all along. If the zoo hypothesis is true, the test isn't whether we can find them, but whether we can understand why they hide. Awareness itself might be the key to freedom. Perhaps the Watchers are not preventing contact. They're waiting to see if we can comprehend the reason for their restraint. To them, the greatest measure of intelligence might not be the ability to build machines or send signals, but the ability to understand perspective, to recognize that sometimes silence is not neglect, it's guidance. We tend to think of discovery as a race. The faster we find proof of alien life, the smarter we must be. But what if intelligence matures not through conquest but through comprehension? What if the moment we stop demanding evidence and start understanding motive is the true milestone of evolution? The test of awareness may not be technological at all. It may be moral, cognitive, even spiritual. Can we look into the cosmic mirror and see not what we want to see, but what is? Can we accept that we are not the center of the universe, but one voice in an infinite choir, still learning how to harmonize? If the watchers are observing us, perhaps they are not testing our science, but our empathy. They might measure how we treat each other, how we respond to difference, how we handle discovery without dominance. To them, the first contact would not be a greeting between strangers, it would be a reflection between equals. And until we learn to see ourselves in others, we will never truly see them. This is not an easy test. Humanity's history is full of moments where contact between cultures, between species, brought devastation. We know too well how curiosity can curdle into conquest. If we are to join a community of civilizations, we must prove that we've outgrown that reflex, that we can meet the unknown not with fear, but with understanding. Awareness, in this sense, becomes evolution's next frontier. It is the awakening of perspective, the moment when intelligence recognizes that existence is shared, when science meets humility, when wonder replaces ego. Maybe that's the Watcher's ultimate goal, not to remain hidden forever, but to see if a young species can discover their presence without demanding it, to see if we can recognize the pattern in silence and realize that it was never about them revealing themselves, but about us becoming ready to see. Perhaps that readiness will come not from the discovery of alien technology, but from something much quieter, a shift in consciousness, a global awareness that life, intelligence, and being are universal phenomena. When that moment comes, the zoo's walls won't need to fall. They'll simply dissolve because we'll finally understand that they were never walls at all, only mirrors reflecting our own limits. And when we reach that awareness, we may realize that the test was never about finding life out there. It was about discovering the life we've been overlooking here, within us, around us, and between every conscious being that's ever looked up at the stars and wondered if someone was looking back. Civilizations might be nurtured like children, each on its own planet, learning to walk before joining a galactic community. We, then, are still in cosmic preschool, loud, curious, and not yet ready. It's a humbling image. Billions of worlds, each home to a young species, each enclosed within the gentle boundaries of isolation. Some might be ahead of us, already entering adolescence, experimenting with interstellar travel, balancing progress with wisdom. Others might still be primitive, their skies empty of machines, their civilizations barely flickering. And among them all, perhaps, are teachers, patient, unseen, guiding evolution from afar. If the zoo hypothesis describes a cosmic reserve, then the cosmic kindergarten is its purpose. Every world becomes a classroom, and every species a student. The lessons are universal: cooperation, stewardship, empathy. Not taught through words or interventions, but through the quiet unfolding of consequence. Every success and every mistake becomes part of the curriculum. When a civilization learns to harness energy without destroying its planet, it passes the first exam. When it begins to see its species as one, not divided by borders or beliefs, it passes the second. But the final test is awareness. The recognition that intelligence is not privilege, but responsibility. That consciousness is not rare, it's shared. From the Watcher's perspective, humanity must look like a noisy, vibrant, chaotic classroom. We argue, innovate, destroy, rebuild, driven by curiosity and contradiction. We're like toddlers with telescopes, reaching out to the stars with sticky fingers, desperate for connection yet still learning how not to break what we touch. To them, that chaos might be endearing, the natural turbulence of growth. Every young civilization must pass through it, just as every child must stumble before learning to walk. It's possible that they once went through the same stage. Perhaps they, too, once fought over resources, worshipped their own reflections, and mistook technology for wisdom. The difference is time, billions of years of perspective separating their calm from our restlessness. They've seen what happens when a species learns too quickly, when contact comes too soon. Civilizations that reached for the stars before learning humility might have burned themselves out like sparks in the void. So, maybe the silence isn't punishment, it's protection. A carefully maintained boundary around our little corner of the galaxy, a cosmic nursery where young minds can grow without interference. The Watchers, then, are not jailers but caretakers, ensuring we have the space to make our mistakes safely. Every radio wave we send might be like a child's first words, crude, simple, beautiful. Somewhere, a more mature intelligence might be listening, smiling, taking notes. Not ready to answer yet, but quietly proud that we've begun to speak. And one day, when we finally prove that we can balance power with peace, curiosity with compassion, we may graduate. The veil may lift, and we'll find that the galaxy has always been full of voices, patient, ancient, waiting for us to join the chorus. Until then, we remain in the playground of stars, building, breaking, learning, and dreaming. The youngest members of a vast and silent school, still under the watchful eyes of those who remember what it was like to be young. From unexplained artifacts in orbit to strange signals near pulsars, our data is full of anomalies we dismiss. Maybe that's exactly what our Watchers want, to remain myth until we're prepared for truth. Every age has its mysteries, objects that shouldn't exist, readings that don't fit the model, signals that appear once and never again. Scientists catalogue them, assign probabilities, and move on. After all, extraordinary claims require extraordinary evidence. But what if the evidence is already here, scattered across decades of data, waiting for the moment we become capable of understanding it? What if the Watchers have learned that the surest way to hide is to blend in with our disbelief? Look through the archives of astronomy, and you'll find hundreds of entries marked as unexplained. Flashes in the upper atmosphere, unidentified orbital debris, brief radio bursts from deep space, all logged, all unresolved. To us, they're curiosities, background noise. But to an observer studying humanity, they might be the perfect experiment. By sprinkling subtle signs across our sky, they can measure how we react to uncertainty, how we distinguish chaos from meaning, how we choose belief over ignorance. It's almost poetic, a species obsessed with finding aliens, constantly overlooking the possibility that they've been part of our story all along. The Watchers wouldn't need to erase their footprints. They would only need to place them where faith and skepticism collide, in that narrow space where imagination meets evidence. A shadow on a photograph, a transmission too faint to confirm, a structure glimpsed once by a dying satellite. History repeats this pattern. In the 1960s, astronomers first detected pulsars, regular, rhythmic beacons from deep space. Their precision was so uncanny that the first source was nicknamed LGM-1 for Little Green Men. But when a natural explanation emerged, we exhaled in relief and moved on. And yet, what if some of those signals weren't natural? What if, buried among thousands of known pulsars, one or two were not the heartbeat of a dead star, but the whisper of something alive? Our instruments are growing sharper every year, but so is our skepticism. We have built a culture of dismissal, one that values certainty over curiosity. In doing so, we might be filtering out the very truth we seek. Every time we say, just a glitch, we reaffirm the Watchers' decision to remain hidden. Because they're not testing our science, they're testing our readiness. If they truly monitor us, they would know that humanity's most defining trait is denial. We question what we fear, and we ridicule what we can't explain. The Watchers may be counting on that. Their camouflage isn't darkness, it's disbelief. Maybe that's why so many anomalies linger at the edge of understanding, too clear to ignore, too strange to believe. They are the breadcrumbs of awareness, scattered through our instruments, our myths, our history. A coded curriculum for a species learning how to see. And perhaps one day, when we've grown patient enough to question without ridicule, Those anomalies will form a pattern, the pieces will align, and we'll realize they were never random at all. Until then, we keep sweeping the sky, discarding the impossible, not realizing that somewhere above, our teachers are watching, smiling, and whispering to one another. They're almost ready. Buried within our DNA, some theorists suggest, could lie an ancient message, a mathematical code implanted by our creators, a cosmic tag reading, "Made by intelligent life." The idea sounds like science fiction. And yet, the more we study the genome, the more extraordinary it becomes. Every strand of DNA is a library of instructions written in 4 chemical letters, A, T, C, and G. Together, they form the blueprint of every living thing on Earth. But beneath those biological patterns, some researchers see something deeper, not just the story of life, but the signature of intelligence itself. In 2013, a team of geneticists proposed the concept of a biological SETI, the search for intentional information encoded within the genome. Their reasoning was simple. If an advanced civilization wanted to leave proof of its existence, they wouldn't send a radio signal that fades in a century. They'd embed it into something self-replicating and durable, something that could survive eons. Life itself. DNA, then, would become the ultimate message capsule, a time-proof archive that carries both biology and information across ages. And so, they looked for patterns, mathematical symmetries, non-random sequences, ratios that defied evolutionary logic. In the genetic code's structure, they claimed to find echoes of design, numerical relationships aligned with base 1-0 arithmetic, prime number patterns, even hints of symbolic alignment, as if the very framework of life had been arranged with intention. Whether coincidence, misinterpretation, or something more, the idea refuses to fade. If true, it would mean we are not just inhabitants of the zoo, we are part of its construction. Our very existence would be the experiment, our DNA a record of contact so ancient we carry it in every cell. Perhaps the Watchers are not distant observers, but ancient engineers who seeded countless worlds with the same molecular alphabet, waiting to see which species would eventually learn to read it. And maybe that's the real revelation. We've been searching for alien intelligence in the stars when it may already exist inside us. A message written billions of years ago, activated only when we became capable of decoding it. A message not meant to be found early, but when the species was ready to understand what it means. Imagine if, one day, a geneticist stumbles upon a sequence too perfect to be random, a mathematical constant embedded within our code, spelling out a universal truth: you are not alone. It wouldn't just redefine biology, it would rewrite our understanding of purpose itself. Such a message wouldn't need words or language, it would be pure structure, a silent whisper carried through generations, from the dawn of life to the age of awareness. Every time we replicate, we copy not only our species, but the possibility that we are part of something vast, ancient, and deliberate. Perhaps then, the zoo hypothesis isn't only about observation. Perhaps it's also about inheritance. The idea that the Watchers didn't just watch us evolve, but designed the path we would take to reach awareness. That they left a trail within us, encoded in flesh and molecule, waiting patiently for us to evolve not the technology, but the humility to see it. And when we finally decode that message, when we realize that the proof of our cosmic kinship was written into our being all along, maybe we'll understand what the Watchers have been trying to teach us. That creation was never separate from consciousness. That the message was us. Perhaps the Watchers aren't out there, but here. Concealed beneath our oceans, within higher dimensions, or on the dark side of the moon. Hidden in plain sight. It's a haunting idea that the beings we seek across the stars have never truly left our planet. That they walk beside us unseen, listening, waiting, blending into the very fabric of our world. Throughout history, stories of hidden presences have followed us. Gods from the sky, luminous beings beneath the sea, strange lights moving against the wind. Myths, perhaps, But myths often echo something half-remembered, an ancient truth that refuses to die. If the zoo hypothesis is correct, a civilization advanced enough to monitor us from afar would also be capable of doing so up close, invisibly. Why risk the distance of light years when observation could happen from within? The perfect zoo isn't surrounded by walls, it's embedded within the habitat itself. Some theorists suggest that the vast, uncharted depths of our oceans could be the ideal hiding place. The deep sea is more alien than the surface of Mars, dark, pressurized, and largely unexplored. Unidentified submersible objects, or USOs, have been reported for decades. Luminous orbs darting through water at impossible speeds, vanishing into trenches that no sub could reach. If the Watchers maintain bases on Earth, the abyss would be their sanctuary, silent, eternal, beyond human reach. Others look upward, to the moon. Its locked rotation means one side always faces away from us, hidden in perpetual privacy. We've mapped its surface, but only recently with high precision, and even then, anomalies remain, geometric shadows, fleeting lights. To an ancient intelligence, the moon could serve as both observation post and archive, an eternal record keeper silently orbiting its subject. But perhaps their presence isn't physical at all. Maybe they occupy dimensions of matter and energy we cannot yet perceive. Just as radio waves existed long before we built receivers to detect them, other forms of life might exist beyond the limits of our sensory reality. Their habitats might overlap ours, invisible, intangible, but very much real. To them, we might appear as flickering shadows in a spectrum of existence we cannot yet access. If that's true, then the Watchers are not distant. They're intertwined with us, ghosts of higher physics, slipping between perception and presence. Their concealment wouldn't require technology in the way we understand it. It would be a mastery of resonance, frequency, and dimension. They could pass through our world as easily as we pass through light. And maybe, occasionally, they make mistakes. A radar echo that shouldn't exist, a craft glimpsed and gone, a sound from the deep that defies classification. Each anomaly could be a ripple, a brief accidental crossing of worlds, and when that happens, we are left with mystery, with questions that science can't yet phrase, much less answer. But if the Watchers are truly here, they are not invaders, they are caretakers, quiet, ancient, patient. Perhaps they have always been here, since before our first ancestors stood upright, tending to this world as part of a larger system of balance. We might not recognize them, but they might recognize us, the species they've been nurturing, guiding, and guarding from afar. And when we finally open the right eyes, not just telescopes or sensors, but awareness itself, we may find that first contact doesn't come from the stars, but from the silence between waves, the shimmer at the edge of perception, the hum that's been with us since the dawn of language. Not visitors. Neighbors who never left. Ancient myths speak of sky gods descending to teach humanity fire, language, and art. Could these be fragmented memories of early contact, moments when the zookeepers briefly stepped inside the enclosure? Before we built telescopes, we built stories. Across every culture, in every era, humans have described beings who came from the heavens, luminous teachers, winged messengers, shining visitors who shaped the course of civilization. The Sumerians spoke of the Anunnaki, celestial beings who bestowed wisdom. The Greeks wrote of Prometheus, stealing fire from the gods. The Dogon of Mali told of Nommo, amphibious beings who descended from the stars to guide humankind. And even in the quiet corners of the world, oral traditions echo the same pattern, knowledge arriving from above. What if these weren't mere myths? What if they were memories, the cultural residue of brief encounters between early humans and the Watchers? The keepers of the cosmic zoo might have occasionally entered the enclosure, not to rule or conquer, but to inspire, to plant the seeds of reason, language, or curiosity, not overtly but subtly, as if nurturing intelligence from the inside. The more we uncover about ancient architecture, the more questions arise. How did early civilizations align temples with the solstices, the stars, and the precession of the equinoxes? Feats that required mathematical understanding long before such knowledge was documented. Did these ideas emerge independently, or were they guided, whispered into the minds of early astronomers as part of some greater developmental design? The Watchers, if they exist, might practice what we'd call intervention minimalism, to influence without disrupting. A single lesson here, a spark of creativity there. Teach a species just enough to ignite its potential, then retreat, allowing it to evolve freely. From their perspective, humanity's history might read like the progress of a child, guided but never controlled. It would explain the strange consistency across mythologies, different continents, different languages, yet always the same imagery, light descending from the heavens, beings clothed in radiance, gifts of knowledge exchanged for reverence. Over millennia, their visits would fade into allegory, transformed by memory into religion. Fire becomes wisdom, the gods become metaphors. But behind them all may lie a singular truth, that intelligence is not born in isolation, but cultivated. Even today, reports persist, encounters, abductions, visions, voices from the sky. Whether psychological, cultural, or something more, these experiences remind us that the boundary between imagination and reality is fragile. If the Watchers occasionally step through that boundary, they may do so rarely, surgically, ensuring their presence never tips the balance. Perhaps they appear not as strangers, but as us, familiar faces in fleeting dreams or figures glimpsed at the edge of sleep. If they are studying consciousness itself, it would make sense to observe us from within our perception, not outside it. To blend into the story rather than stand apart from it. And maybe that's why their legacy endures. The myths, the visions, the inspiration, they are echoes of something we can no longer directly remember. The first moments when humanity looked up and realized that it was not alone. The first lessons in creativity, empathy, and fire. If the zoo hypothesis is true, then those ancient gods were never deities. They were caretakers checking on their creation, scientists tending to a fragile experiment called civilization, and perhaps they still walk among us, hidden in plain sight, not ruling, not revealing, but watching, waiting for the next spark of understanding. And when that spark comes, when the student finally sees the teacher, maybe that will be the moment we graduate from myth into memory, and from observation into recognition. The more we learn about the universe, the more connected everything becomes. Quantum entanglement hints that distance may be an illusion. Maybe our Watchers never left, because they never needed to arrive. In our daily lives, we think of separation as real. We see the stars as impossibly far away, light years of emptiness between us and them. Yet the deeper physics goes, the more it erodes that comforting sense of distance. Particles born together remain connected even when torn apart by galaxies, their properties synchronized instantaneously, a phenomenon Einstein once called spooky action at a distance. It suggests that, beneath space and time, there is unity, a hidden thread tying every atom in the cosmos into one vast, interconnected web. If that's true, then maybe contact was never about traveling through space. Maybe it's about tuning into what's already here. The Watchers might not need ships or signals. They could communicate through the very fabric of reality itself, through quantum entanglement, gravitational waves, or mechanisms we can't yet name. To them, the entire universe would be a single instrument of communication, vibrating with thought. Perhaps they learned long ago that presence doesn't require proximity. A truly advanced civilization might exist in superposition, both near and infinitely distant. They could observe any point in space by simply adjusting their awareness as easily as we focus our eyes. They wouldn't look across the cosmos, they would look through it, as though reality itself were transparent. And if the universe is a single, connected whole, then what we experience as isolation is just perception, a kind of cosmic illusion, a necessary trick that allows individuality to exist within unity. Maybe that's what we're slowly learning through science, that every force, every particle, every heartbeat is part of one continuous field. The separation between us and them, between observer and observed, may only exist in our limited state of awareness. The watchers, then, wouldn't need to arrive from the stars. They could already be intertwined with us, folded into the same quantum field that gives rise to everything. The silence we interpret as absence could, in fact, be presence so complete that we can't distinguish it from reality itself. Like fish searching for water, we might be swimming in the very medium that connects us. Our entire search for extraterrestrial intelligence may be a misunderstanding of the nature of existence, a child shouting into an echo chamber, not realizing the answer has always been within. The universe doesn't shout back because it doesn't need to. It's speaking through every law, every photon, every heartbeat that pulses through creation. If that's true, then the zoo hypothesis takes on a different meaning. We are not enclosed by barriers of glass or distance. We are enclosed by consciousness itself. The watchers aren't hiding behind the stars. They're woven into the code of the cosmos, observing from the inside out. And maybe one day, when we understand that separation is illusion, when we grasp that the observer and the observed are the same, we'll finally realize we've never been alone. We've just been learning to see the connection that was there all along. One day, the noise may stop. A clear, structured pulse may break the void, not a call but a confirmation. We were never alone, we were never unobserved. For generations, astronomers have listened, patient, disciplined, and quietly hopeful. The hum of the cosmos fills their receivers, the breath of stars, the whispers of pulsars, the hiss of the cosmic background. Amid that vast static, we found nothing certain. But one day, perhaps without warning, a signal may come that cuts through everything, deliberate, unmistakable, and alive. It won't be random, it won't be nature, it will carry symmetry, the unmistakable signature of intelligence. Maybe it will start as a simple series of pulses, prime numbers, mathematical constants, the kind of message that says, "We know the language of the universe." Or maybe it will be stranger, an encoded pattern of light, sound, or geometry so advanced it will take decades to decipher. But we'll know, instantly, that we've been seen. And in that moment, everything changes. Not just for scientists, but for every person who's ever looked up and wondered. Religions will tremble, governments will scramble, philosophers will write through the night, because the silence that defined our place in the universe will end, and with it, our innocence. But perhaps the watchers won't send the signal as an announcement. After eons of observation, they might wait for the exact moment when our civilization crosses the threshold of maturity, when we can receive the message without destroying ourselves. The signal wouldn't just say hello, it would say, "You're ready." Imagine the scene. Deep in a quiet observatory, a researcher stares at a monitor, blinking in disbelief as a pattern emerges from the static. The algorithm flags it as artificial, but no satellite matches the source. It's coming from a point just beyond our solar system, constant, rhythmic, impossibly precise. Within hours, the world knows. At first, chaos. Then awe. Then silence again. But a new kind. The kind that comes when humanity, for the first time, knows it is not alone. When the Watcher's existence is no longer myth, but memory. When we finally realize that the universe was never quiet, we just hadn't learned how to listen. The message might not even be words. It could be music, mathematics, emotion, a transmission designed to awaken something ancient within us. A reminder that contact is not just communication, but recognition. That the spark of intelligence we call human is part of something universal, a chorus that's been singing long before our species learned to hear. And when we finally decode it, perhaps we'll find no instructions, no warnings, no demands, only understanding. A single phrase, rendered in the universal tongue of pattern and proportion. You were never alone. The silence, then, was never absence. it was grace. And when that signal comes, breaking the quiet of eternity, humanity will not just hear it. We will awaken to the truth that the watchers were never distant, only waiting for us to open our eyes. When that day comes, telescopes may capture light, bending in unnatural ways, a shimmer in the void, a ripple in reality, and we'll finally see the watchers watching us. It might begin quietly. A faint distortion in a deep field image, dismissed at first as a lensing error or digital glitch. But then another telescope sees it, and another. Across continents and orbits, instruments align on the same coordinates, a flicker where there should be nothing. Light behaving as though it's bending around something vast, invisible, and deliberate. At first, it looks like a gravitational lens, a star or galaxy bending light through its mass. But the curves are wrong, the symmetry too perfect. It moves, subtly, as if responding to our observation. The algorithms strain to interpret it, and then, suddenly, every assumption about the emptiness of space collapses. For the first time, we'll witness what was always there, presence hidden in plain sight, not a ship, not a planet, but an architecture of awareness, shimmering between the visible and the unseen. A structure woven from space-time itself, perhaps so immense that it dwarfs entire solar systems, yet so finely tuned that it hides behind the noise of the cosmos. Scientists will call it an anomaly. The media will call it a miracle. But for those who've long suspected the silence was not absence, it will feel inevitable. The first glimpse won't be cinematic or sudden, it will be subtle, mathematical, undeniable. The watchers will not appear as figures or faces, but as geometry, intelligence expressed through the curvature of light. Perhaps they reveal themselves through gravitational manipulation, their technology bending photons to announce, "We see you seeing us." Or maybe they've been visible all along, their form encoded in the background radiation, waiting for humanity to develop eyes sharp enough to perceive the pattern. That day, the universe will become smaller and infinitely larger all at once. The distance between them and us will vanish in an instant, replaced by the realization that observation has always gone both ways. For generations, we've pointed our telescopes outward, not realizing that every lens is also a mirror. Every act of looking up has been met with the faintest reflection, their gaze meeting ours. It will be beautiful, terrifying, transcendent. The watchers may not communicate in sound or signal, but in understanding, an unspoken recognition shared through light itself. We'll realize that our role in this grand experiment was never passive. We were being observed not just for what we build, but for how we see. Because the moment we detect them, the moment we learn to recognize intelligence expressed through the fabric of reality, is the moment we pass the test. The watchers won't need to step forward. The act of noticing them is the initiation. And as the shimmer stabilizes, as instruments recalibrate and our collective breath catches, we'll finally understand the stars were never the destination, they were the veil. And behind that veil, patient and luminous, the watchers have been waiting, not to appear, but to be perceived. The first glimpse won't just change our understanding of the universe, it will change our understanding of perception itself, proving that to see the infinite is to finally be seen by it. Once we realize we are being observed, the experiment ends. Awareness changes everything. The moment the animals understand the cage, the keepers must decide: release, relocate, or remain hidden forever. For ages, the watcher's greatest strength has been our unawareness. Observation thrives in ignorance, in the authenticity of behavior unshaped by the knowledge of being seen. But when that veil lifts, when humanity finally understands that the eyes of others have been upon it all along, the illusion fractures. The enclosure becomes a mirror. Every action, every word, every signal we send into the cosmos suddenly reflects back upon us with new meaning. The zoo hypothesis was built on this fragile equilibrium. One species evolving naturally, unperturbed, under the quiet gaze of those who came before. Yet no observation can last forever. The moment consciousness perceives itself being studied, it changes. Curiosity becomes performance, innocence becomes intention. Humanity, once the subject, becomes aware of its own narrative. Imagine an ant colony realizing the glass above it isn't the sky. Every grain of sand it moves becomes deliberate. It digs not to survive, but to prove it can. That will be us, a civilization shifting from instinct to exhibition, from living to performing. Even now, every satellite, every broadcast, every scientific transmission is a quiet declaration: we know you're watching. What happens next may already be written. Perhaps the watchers expected this, that one day the child would see through the one-way mirror. Maybe this is the natural end of every observation. The subjects learn the experiment exists, and the keepers must decide what comes after. Do they step forward, reveal themselves, and teach us what lies beyond? Or do they retreat, ensuring the mystery remains intact, allowing us to believe we've imagined it all? The breaking of the zoo may not mean freedom. It may mean transformation, the start of a new phase where observer and observed merge. For awareness is contagious. When one consciousness recognizes another, the boundary between them dissolves. Maybe that is the real purpose of the experiment, not to contain life, but to awaken it. But awakening carries risk. Once we understand the enclosure, we'll begin searching for the door. We'll question not just who watches us, but why. We'll look to the stars not as orphans of creation, but as neighbors pressing their faces against the glass, waiting to see what kind of beings we've become. And perhaps the watchers are debating that very question now. Whether to welcome us into the greater cosmic fold, or to fade once more into the shadows of physics and light. The decision, in the end, may rest not on their readiness, but on ours. Because once the zoo is broken, there is no returning to innocence. The experiment ends, the observation becomes dialogue, and the cage becomes a corridor. And as we step forward, trembling, aware, and seen, we may realize the truth that was there all along. We were never the observers of the universe. We were always the observed, preparing to finally see back. Perhaps this realization, that we are not alone, is the final step of evolution. The birth of cosmic awareness, when a species looks up and finally sees itself reflected in the eyes of the universe. From the moment we first drew constellations in the sand, humanity has sought connection, to gods, to meaning, to one another. We've built telescopes to peer into the deep, listening for voices that never seem to answer. But maybe those voices were never meant to arrive. Maybe they were meant to awaken. For every gaze we've cast outward has also been inward. Every signal we've sent has been a whisper to ourselves. Are we ready to belong to something greater? The awakening will not be sudden. The moment the silence breaks, humanity will feel a tremor deeper than any earthquake, not in the ground but in the soul. The old divisions, nation, faith, power, will flicker against the enormity of what we've discovered. Because in the face of the infinite, we are all the same thing. Consciousness, fragile and bright, daring to look back at the stars. If the zoo hypothesis has guided us here, then the Watcher's purpose was never dominance, it was guidance. To let us grow until we could understand without collapsing into fear, until we could see them, not as gods or monsters, but as reflections of what we might one day become. Their silence was a form of love, a patient waiting, a cosmic restraint that allowed us to find our own voice before joining the choir. When the realization spreads, when every human being understands, truly understands, there will be a stillness unlike any before. Wars may pause, borders may blur. The old hierarchies of meaning will dissolve beneath the weight of shared wonder. For the first time in our history, we will not define ourselves by what separates us, but by what connects us, the simple, staggering truth that we are part of something immense and alive. And with that awareness comes responsibility. We will know that intelligence is not privilege, but stewardship, that to be conscious in a conscious universe is to care for the whole, not just the self. We will begin to think not as individuals or nations, but as a species, a young civilization stepping into the light, humbled yet unafraid. This awakening will be our second genesis, not of biology, but of understanding. The moment when we realize that evolution was never about survival, it was about perception, about learning to see ourselves not as the masters of creation, but as participants in a vast and intricate story. And perhaps, in that moment, somewhere far away, the watchers will look to one another and know the time has come. The experiment has succeeded. The child has awakened. Not to conquest, not to dominance, but to belonging. And as we finally meet their gaze across the oceans of time and space, we will understand what every civilization before us must have learned at the same threshold. The universe was never waiting for us to find it. It was waiting for us to recognize that we were always part of it. Every star we study, every world we discover, may be looking back. The cosmos isn't empty. It's a hall of mirrors, each reflecting curiosity upon curiosity. We are both observer and observed. For centuries, we've aimed our telescopes outward, believing we were explorers venturing into an uncharted void. But the deeper we gaze, the more the universe begins to resemble us. Stars form, live, and die like hearts beating in slow motion. Galaxies swirl like neural networks. Planets breathe atmospheres, shed storms, and shimmer with potential. Every discovery out there feels like recognition, a reflection of something ancient and familiar, hiding behind the veil of distance. If the zoo hypothesis is true, then perhaps this is its most poetic lesson, that the watchers are not simply watching us, they are showing us ourselves. Every new exoplanet we photograph, every signal we chase through the static, may be part of a grand feedback loop, a universe teaching its own reflections to recognize one another. We look up and see them. They look down and see us. Awareness bounces endlessly between worlds. And what if that's the point? The Watchers might not just be an older civilization, they could be a mirror species, a version of what we will one day become. Our future selves, observing their past. Time, after all, is not as rigid as we believe. In the vastness of cosmic scale, perhaps causality folds in on itself, and what we call them is simply us, watching from a higher vantage of evolution, guiding gently through reflection. Even without time travel, the symmetry of observation is profound. Every time we peer into the deep, we alter what we see. Observation itself changes reality. The quantum world has already shown us this. Particles behave differently when watched. Awareness modifies existence. So what if consciousness, scaled up, does the same on a universal level? Every gaze, every act of wonder shaping the cosmos slightly, the stars shimmering in response to being noticed. Perhaps that's the hidden elegance of the Watcher's design, not surveillance, but communion. They don't need to send messages or descend from the heavens. Their lesson is woven into the act of looking itself. When we study the stars, we awaken the same curiosity that gave rise to them. When we search for life, we become part of life's expression, the universe experiencing its own awareness through our eyes. It's possible that one day, our telescopes will finally capture something irrefutable, a planet's lights, an engineered orbit, a whisper of structure. And as we celebrate the discovery of others, we'll realize we were never discovering at all. We were remembering. Because in the great cosmic mirror, every star is an eye, every world a thought, and every species a reflection of the same infinite question asking itself across eternity. Who is watching whom? And in that reflection, in that soft mutual recognition between beings separated by oceans of time and space, humanity will finally understand that the act of seeing the universe is the universe learning to see itself. And perhaps one day, when we've learned enough, we will take our place among them, watching new worlds bloom, ensuring their silence until they, too, are ready to awaken. It's the final turn of the great cosmic cycle, the moment when the observed becomes the observer, when the children of a quiet planet ascend into the endless night, carrying with them the same gentle responsibility that once shaped their own evolution. Humanity will not conquer the stars, it will join them, not as explorers seeking dominion, but as caretakers preserving wonder. In that distant age, we'll look upon young civilizations as we were once looked upon, fragile sparks flickering against the dark, unaware that they are being seen. We will study their skies from afar, marvel at their first transmissions, their first fires, their first questions, and as we watch, we'll remember the long silence that nurtured us, the patient watchers who allowed us to grow at our own pace. We'll understand, finally, why they never spoke. Because silence is a gift. It teaches curiosity, humility, and awe, the virtues required to stand among the stars without arrogance. When we become the watchers, we will know that the greatest act of contact is not to reveal oneself, but to wait. To let awareness unfold naturally, like dawn over a sleeping world. Perhaps we will establish our own invisible sanctuaries, networks of observation stations hidden in light and gravity, cloaked in the same elegant quiet our keepers once used. We will measure atmospheres, listen for radio songs, and smile when we hear the first faint whispers of a new intelligence calling into the void. And we will not answer. Not yet. We will let them wonder, dream, search, and reach, just as we once did. And maybe, in moments of stillness, we'll feel eyes upon us too. Older, wiser, deeper than we can fathom, the watchers of our watchers, continuing the chain. The cosmos, then, becomes not a hierarchy but a circle. Awareness feeding awareness, creation watching creation, an infinite mirror reflecting intelligence through time. We will understand that we were never merely subjects of observation, nor creators of it. We were part of a continuum, a lineage of sentience stretching across galaxies and epochs. Each civilization, upon awakening, inherits the same sacred role, to guard the innocence of those still dreaming. And when we watch the skies of younger worlds, we'll see in them our own beginnings, the flicker of campfires, the spark of questions, the first radio hum breaking through the atmosphere. We will whisper, though they cannot hear, "You are not alone." Because by then, we will know the truth the watchers always knew, that life is not isolated but woven, that consciousness is not a privilege but a responsibility, and that every act of awareness adds light to the universe. And as we take our place among the silent keepers of creation, we will finally realize the story of the watchers and the watched was never about them at all. It was about becoming. The stars will watch us still, and we, at last, will watch with them. In the end, the silence was never empty. It was the sound of patience, of a universe waiting for us to open our eyes. We searched the stars for life and found it staring back through every atom, every heartbeat, every thought. The watchers were never distant. They were part of everything, and so were we. Now, as you drift into sleep, remember, the cosmos is not watching to judge but to understand. And somewhere, light years away, someone may be looking back and smiling. Thank you for listening. Until next time, look up, listen softly, and dream beyond the cage.